My name is Joe Morose. I am a cabaret compere and performer, and I live in London and work in London. I became a performer from a very young age, pretty much from the womb straight out. That's when I first became a performer. My first audience, very small doctor, a couple of nurses, and they all gave me a standing ovation, and it was very well received. I'm such a wanker. So I performed at Café de Paris for the first time in 2015, I think. It was one of the Showtime cabarets on a Saturday night. The reason I got that job particularly is because I met Tom, the producer of those particular shows, at the bar in Café de Paris about 2 months before that, and we got rollicking drunk. And then he said, "I like you," and I was like, "Well, I like you, I think, if we remember this in the morning." And then turns out 2 months later, I got to go on the stage here, on this very stage here. It was one particular low light quite early on when at the beginning of the show, there was some pyros that used to go off about here and here, and I always used to forget where they were on the stage, so I came on stage flanked by the folly mixtures, and I walked into the pyros. They went off like that, and then for about the first 5 minutes of the sort of cold open and compere bit, I definitely smell a small amount of burning. I was going, I don't know what that is. Oh, somebody must have put a coat into the candle or something, thinking it was. And it turned out when I got off stage that my hair had been slowly just smouldering for about 5 minutes. That's the only time I've ever smouldered on stage in my life. And I went backstage and was like, "Does anything else smell burning?" And then they all told me it was in fact me, not because of the hotness of my performance, just because I was in actual fire. The thing about Café de Paris, I think, that's most important to remember is that it's been here for ages, and it's such a historic venue. There's so many people that have performed here that are heroes of mine and heroes of other people, lots and lots of icons, whether they be from any walk of life, but they've all been on this stage. And I think it's particularly important to be, when you're doing the sort of job that we do or that I do, and you're part of this kind of industry, it's nice to be able to feel like you belong to a little bit of history. And I think this room, more than any of the other venues in London, really makes you feel like you're walking into being a part of that story that's been going on for quite a long time. I myself am quite a big Noel Coward fan, and Noel Coward in the 50s performed and used to stand and do all of his links on these stairs here, and then he used to stand in the middle of the stage, and there's a fantastic photo of him literally stood there doing a bit of this, and I studied quite a lot of Noel Coward and fell in love with all of Noel Coward's work. And then the opportunity to be part of that story was particularly nice, because I think it does make you feel like you're part of something slightly bigger. Thing about Cafe is that it's always been a place where people can come and watch fun shit happen. And that's something that I think is still exactly the same today as I think it was in 1924, is that you come down, you're sitting and watching somebody do something in a nice place. And I think that's a really important thing. So I think that's the main thing that's important to me about it, is that it feels like somewhere that's very joyous and very human. That was pretentious and cunty, but I don't mind it. There's been lots of things that I can't remember for obvious reasons. I think one of my favourite things about Soho is whenever you get across Shaftesbury Avenue, particularly into that sort of Old Compton Street bit of Soho, there is a bit of a flipping switch of, not a flipping switch, there's a bit of like a switch that flips where you go, oh, this has a different vibe. This does have a real different kind of enclosed, narrow street kind of thing where it all feels a bit meandery, cobbly street London. And that, I think, is the main thing about when you've not been into Soho for quite a while. All of that bit, the fact that it is like a little village, that's the bit that you kind of miss. And I think you only really get that when you wander around occasionally on a quiet afternoon, if there is such a thing, or occasionally when you work places like here, and then if you leave here, in the wee small hours of the morning, and you suddenly walk down all those streets and they're really empty, and you go, oh, this is just actually quite a nice little, feels like a nice little village. That's a really lovely thing.
L is for the way you look at me, and O is for the only one that I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E.
Thanks for watching. See you soon, hopefully. Stay alive, because that's quite important. And remember to like other people. That's important as well. I love you. Bye. I think that there's one thing that I've been doing on this stage, which is masturbation in some form or other for 5 years now. So I think, I talk absolute bollocks, but no one's really actually listening. Like, you only listen to every 5 words. And eventually I go, ooh, bum! And then